This is the bicycle frame video, part 5. Parts 1 through 4 started with the insertion of our bike geometry. Then we made all of our necessary layout sketches. And then we proceeded to make the front triangle of the frame, which included the seat tube, top tube, head tube, down tube, and bottom bracket shell. That took us all the way to step 28. In this video, we will move on to making our chainstay, which consists of 4 projected guide curves and 2 profiles that are used to make a boundary. And then we move on to making our seat stay, which also consists of 4 projected guide curves and 2 profiles to make a boundary. After that, we will be splitting the stays so that these small portions of the ends can be used for the dropout plate, which will go here. After this split, we can then shell these 2 bodies here so that they become the tube for the chainstay and the tube for the seat stay. We will then move on to making the dropout plate, which is a simple extrusion, adding a hole in the center if that's part of your design, adding some fillets for refinements, but not too many. Most of the fillets will be added outside of this master file. Then we will further refine the ends of these little stubs by using the dome tool to round out the end here and round out the end here. Finally, we will combine these 3 bodies together to make the entire dropout plate, which is a forged aluminum part. The last feature in this master model then will just be to add the brake bridge that connects together the 2 seat stays. We will only make 1/2 of the brake bridge from the front plane going outward to connect with the right-hand seat stay. This part will be mirrored outside of the master file. Now I'm going to roll the model back to just before step 29 and reproduce steps 29 through 56 to complete this master. Steps 29 and 30 will be to make the profile planes for the ends of the chainstay. Selecting reference geometry plane, we'll use the front plane as our first reference, and this line as our second reference, giving us the left end plane of the chainstay. Same procedure will be used for the right end of the chainstay. Again, selecting plane, front plane as my reference. The second reference will be this line in my main layout, which makes a new plane perpendicular to the front plane and through this line. I'll hide those planes for now. And the next step is to start making my projected curves for the chainstay. I'm going to start with the upper guide, and to do that I'll make a sketch on my front plane. All I have to do is copy this upper guide from my main layout, convert entities, and I'm done. This curve needs to be projected with the middle curve of my top tilted layout of my chainstay. This middle curve will be used twice, just like we did with the bike fork. It'll be used for the upper guide and for the lower guide. So now making a sketch on my chainstay top tilted plane. I will just simply copy this guide using convert entities again and finish that sketch. Now I've momentarily hidden all my sketches except for the 2 that I just created. This is the sketch of the upper guide shown in the front view, and this is both the upper and lower guide when viewed from the tilted plane for the chainstay. We are going to project these 2 together to get one curve. Going to Insert, Curve, Projected, select this sketch and this sketch. See the highlight of the projected curve. And here is our completed projected curve for the upper guide for the chainstay. We will repeat this procedure for the lower guide. I've made my main layout sketch and my tilted sketch of my chainstay visible again. Once again, on the front plane, we will make a new sketch. And this time I'm going to copy the lower curve from my main layout. So again, using Convert Entities, just click on that element and finish the sketch. Now making a new sketch on our chainstay tilted top plane. We are once again going to copy this middle curve. This does double duty both as the upper and the lower guide in this view. We had a very similar situation with the bike fork. So just Convert Entities, select this middle guide again, finish, and finish the sketch. I've again hidden all my sketches except for the two sketches that we just created. So here we see the lower guide from the front view and that same upper lower guide from the tilted top view. Going to Insert, Curve, Projected, selecting these two curves gives us our lower projected guide. I've made my layout sketches visible again. This time we are going to make the outer guide for our chainstay. To do that, this time we will be using the middle curve on our front layout. And this middle curve actually represents the outer guide and the inner guide when viewed from the front view. This time we will be projecting that with this outer curve when viewed from the top tilted view. So we will be using this middle curve twice from the top tilted view, and we will be using the middle curve twice for the front view. Making a sketch on our front plane, I will copy this middle curve using Convert Entities and finish the sketch. Looking at our top tilted view, we'll make another sketch on our top tilted plane and copy this outer curve. And I'll finish the sketch. Making my main layout and my tilted layout hidden again. I'm left with just the two sketches that I just made, and I will project those together. Insert, Curve, Projected, selecting this sketch and selecting this sketch gives me my outer projected curve, which appears in the middle from the front view and appears on the outside in the top view. I've again made my layout sketches visible, and we will make the last projected curve for the inner guide curve. This time, once again, we will use this middle curve of the front layout. So selecting the front plane for a sketch, Convert Entities, and selecting this middle curve again, finish the sketch. Now tilting our view so we can see the chainstay from above, we will sketch once again on our chainstay top tilted plane. And this time we are going to copy this inside curve. Convert Entities, select that curve, check mark, and again we just finish the sketch. Again, I've hidden my layouts, so I just see the last two sketches that I made. I can see the inner curve when viewed from above. and the inner curve when viewed from the front, which is in alignment with the outer curve. We now combine these last two sketches, going to Insert, Curve, Projected, clicking on the two sketches we just made. And there's our inside guide curve, which is in alignment with the outside guide curve, as we see here. So the top and bottom guide curves are in alignment with each other, and the outer and inner are in alignment with each other. Normally it takes a total of 8 sketches to make 4 projected curves, but we only have 3 lines to select in the front view and 3 lines to select in the top view. But because we use this line twice in the top view and this line twice in the front view, that gave us the 8 sketches that we needed. So we've gotten some of this laborious work out of the way, and it's now time to make the profile on the right side of the chainstay. So selecting the end plane for the right side, I'll make a new sketch, and I'm going to make a profile that's not too different from what I did from the top tube and the down tube. I'm just going to make some curvy diamond shapes like this and pierce these corners to the guide curves. Here's my upper guide, making it pierce to this upper point. Here's my lower guide, make it pierce to that. Here's my outer guide, make it pierce to this outer point. And here's my inner guide, make it pierce to that. You might find the first time you make these pierces, you have no trouble picking the guides from the graphic area. But the second time you do it, if you have to redo this profile, for some reason there's a bug in Solidworks that makes it hard to pick this projected curve a second time. You saw as I did this, I actually had to pick the curves from the feature tree instead. I'm going to grab all of these, give an equal relation, make this a radius of about 30 millimeters. And now I can finish my sketch. So now I can put my profile at the other end of the chainstay, selecting my left end plane, sketch, again making a sort of curvy diamond shape. And piercing the corners of the diamond to the appropriate guides. Upper guide to this point, pierce. Lower guide to this lower point, pierce. Outer guide to this point, and inner guide to this point. Make all of these equal and add a radius. This looks a little too flat to me, so I'll try making it 20. I'll make that even a little more rounded. I'll make that 10. And that finishes the sketch. And that completes steps 35A and 35B, giving us our two end profiles and the guide curves that were made earlier. The next step is pretty easy. I just go to Features, Boundary, select the two profiles for direction 1, and I've turned off my zebra stripes and curvature combs to make it a little easier to see what's happening here. And for direction 2, I'll select my guide curves. 1, 2, there's one down here, 3, and we'll try to find that inner curve, 4. And this is very important. Make sure that Merge Result is unchecked. And that completes step 36, the boundary for the chainstay. Step 39 is just to add some fillets along these lengthwise edges. We'll use 3 millimeters like before. So just clicking on these edges, That completes our fillets, step 37. Steps 38 through 45 are to do a similar process for the seat stay. What will first happen is we'll make a plane for the bottom end of the seat stay boundary, a plane for the upper end, and then we will make 4 projected curves, just like before, and we would make 2 profiles. Because this process is so similar to what was done here, I will only just give an overview of what was done rather than laboriously reproducing every step. So rolling back to step 37 and making our front layout visible again, and this time we are going to make our seat stay layout visible. As we see here, and this is on a tilted plane. We're calling this a right tilted plane this time. And we will make, as step 38, the plane for the lower end of the seat stay. And that's done simply by using the front plane and this line as our 2 references for making our new plane passing through here. Step 39 is similar, where we just need to make the plane for the top of the seat stay. And that is using this line through the front layout sketch and again the front plane as a reference. Step 40 is to make the trailing edge guide of the seat stay, and that will be done by copying this rear curve here in the front view and the middle curve in the tilted right view. Momentarily hiding my sketches, I see that projected curve. Step 41 is to make the projected curve for the seat stay leading guide. And this time we will copy this line from the front layout, and again we will use the middle guide from the tilted layout. Once again hiding our sketches. You see here that these 2 curves line up with each other when viewed from the tilted right plane. Here we see the trailing edge and the leading edge. Step 42 is the inner guide. That will be done by making a copy of this middle line on the front view. This time we will use the inner curve of the tilted right view, giving us this projected curve here. And finally, step 43 is to make the outer guide for the seat stay. That is done by again copying this middle curve in the front view, and this time using the outer curve in the tilted right view. So hiding our sketches and leaving just the projected curves. We see the leading and trailing curves are in alignment with each other when viewed from this direction. And we see the inner and outer curves are in alignment with each other when viewed from this direction. Step 44 is drawing the profile at the lower end of the seat stay. In this case, I decided to try something just a little bit different. I actually put the fillets into my sketch this time around, just as a different way to demonstrate how the profile could be done. In this case, even though I have 4 projected curves, I essentially have a 3-sided stay. This side bridges from here to here, this side from here to here, and this side actually bridges from this guide curve, passes through this guide curve, and finishes on this one. And of course, we have fillets in the corners here, and it's the fillets here that actually make the pierces to the guide curves. In order to do that, I've added sketch points that are coincident with these fillets and pierced to the guide curves. So we have a coincident from this point to this curve, pierced to this guide curve, and then a similar procedure done these other three. And the profile at the upper end looks pretty similar. Since I made a three-sided profile down at the bottom of the seat stay, I pretty much needed to make a similar profile up here. So again, this is just one curve going from here to here, going into tangent fillets, curve here, tangent fillet, curve, tangent fillet. And then using sketch points coincident to these fillets and then pierced to the guide curves. And then finishing that sketch, we'll roll forward one more time. And of course, all we have to do is combine these profiles and these four guides to create our boundary for the seat stay. And just like before, we need to make sure that this is unmerged. Now you'll recall that my plan was to split off these little nubs from the ends of the stays. So I've made my dropout plate layout sketch visible again. On my front plane, I will make a new sketch and I will copy these lines that were placed into my dropout plate sketch and finish that sketch. Let me just hide my dropout plate layout again. Here's the splitting sketch that I had just created. So now I go into Insert, Features, Split, and I select the sketch that I just created as the splitting tool. So I'll click on that and I will say Cut Part. The pieces that I want to save from cutting off are this one and this one. We can ignore everything else going on here. Hit the check mark. Let's hide everything. And we see this line passing through both of these. This is a clean cut that divides this body and divides this body. That completes step 47. Now I can finally go and shell these two stays while leaving these two nubs solid. I will temporarily isolate this stay. Now I can go into Features, Shell. I want it to be 2 millimeters thick, and I will exclude the ends of the shell. And that gives me my shelled chainstay. Exiting my isolate, I will now isolate the seat stay. Again, going to shell, picking this end face, and picking this end face 2 millimeters. And there I've got a successfully shelled seat stay. Exit isolate to bring my parts back again. We can now start working on the dropout plate and combine it to these little nubs. Incidentally, that completed steps 48 and 49. To make the dropout plate, I want to have my dropout plate layout sketch visible and also my chainstay layout sketch visible. I need to sketch the dropout plate actually on the dropout plate plane so that it's in the proper position in three-dimensional space. That plane is located in the inserted bike geometry file. So sketching on that rear dropout plane, I can simply copy this entire layout sketch and delete the elements I don't want. So here's my rear dropout plate layout sketch. I'll just click on that, convert entities, and you see how that's copied the entire sketch onto the dropout plate plane. This sketch includes the lines for the splitting sketch, so I can get rid of those. And I can put the plate into this sketch as well, as you see here, or I can separate it into a separate feature. I think I'll just put that into a separate feature. And now all I have to do is extrude this. Choosing extrude. The reason I have the sketch for the chainstay visible is I can use that sketch as an up to vertex reference, and I can make this extrusion go up to this point in my chainstay layout. And for now, I'm going to keep this unmerged. I will sketch on that dropout plate plane again. This time I will just copy the lines for the hole. And extruded cut, reverse the direction, and I can do a through all in this case. And that completes step 51. Now I have these sharp corners here and here, and also some sharp corners poking out just barely from the nub here and here. So I'll temporarily isolate the plate and add some fillets so that these corners will blend nicely with the nubs that we are going to combine it with. So choosing fillet, I'm going to make 10mm fillets and just click on these edges. To finish that off, and exit the isolate. So now I see these corners going a little more gracefully into the little nubs here. You might be wondering how I figured all this out. This was all done ahead of time in sort of a trial and error process, just trying to get some shapes and some fillets and some blends that I thought looked good. So you can experiment around with this a lot. See how this arc here is just going right into the nub, because this one here is actually sitting outside of the nub, and it's the fillet that's blending it back in. Now I want to give the ends of these nubs a little bit more of a refined look too, and they are going to be blending together with this plate. Right now we just have a harsh ending to these. We could try adding a fillet to these, or we could do something that's a little bit more full and graceful looking than just a simple fillet on the edge. What I'm going to do is use the dome tool, and for some reason I don't seem to have it up on my command manager, so I'll just go into Insert, Feature, Dome, and select the end face of the nub here, and I will just play around with a dimension that looks good to me. Right now this is set at 10. I could try setting this to 15. That actually causes a failure, so we'll try 5 to start with. We can see how that bulges out, but I think we could go a little more than that, so let's try 8. That looks pretty good, so this gives this a nice rounded end that I think looks better than if we had just put a fillet on this edge. It actually creates more mass here too, so that there's more of a connection between the nub here and the plate. So we'll stick with 8 here. Now you can see why I did not merge this plate to these nubs when I made this extrusion, because if I had done so, I would not have been able to have made this dome. Now I just need to add a dome to this end. So Insert, Feature, Dome, select this face, and I think I can go a little bit bigger than 8 for this one. We'll try 10 this time around. That looks kind of nice. Finish that. And I've just completed steps 53 and 54. The last step in this structure here is simply to combine these 3 bodies. So Insert, Feature, Combine. We want to make sure that the Add option is selected. Just simply click on these three bodies. Now we see we have a nice black line where these have been intersecting, indicating that these have been combined together into a single body. We only have one more step for this frame master file, and that is to make the break bridge which connects together the two seat stays up at the top. So making my sketches visible and making my main layout sketch visible. We have this circle that we put into our layout. On our front plane, draw a new sketch, copy that circle, and then go to Features, Extrude, and we want to make this a tube, which we can do by making this a thin feature. So we'll make this 2 millimeters thick, just like before, and we'll make sure that the thickness is going to the inside of the circle. So I will toggle the arrow here. So here we see the 2 millimeters going inward. And all we have to do is do a blind extrusion that goes partially into the stay here. So we'll try 10 is not enough, 20 isn't enough, 30 seems to go all the way through, and later on we will use this surface to cut away the excess. We won't go in both directions, we'll just make one half, and then we'll make the mirror later on outside of this master file. Once again, make sure that merge result is unchecked, finish the extrusion, and here is our break bridge. Now you notice it seems to be breaking through a little bit to the outside here. You probably want to shorten that just a little bit because it'll be easier to trim this off if it's not breaking through to the outside. So I'll just edit this and change this to about 25. That looks good. So it goes completely into the stay but not bursting through to the outside. So this is our completed master file for our bike frame. You'll notice that we have a total of 9 solid bodies, all unmerged, and we do not have the left-hand side of the rear triangle. We are also missing a lot of refinements, such as fillets along the edges of the dropout plate and fillets on the edges of some of the other tubes as well. We are going to try to keep those types of embellishments out of the master file to reduce the number of features in the master file and place them in the individual part files when we create them from this master. This completes the Part 5 video.